Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Making the Rounds. And today we have a newcomer and special guest, Mr. Warburg,
Hi.
and a returning guest, Dart.
I've been here once before.
Yes, and I'm glad that
I
you're
have
back.
no memory of this place.
Why is it so cold?
Yes, it's so dark. And today we're going to be making the rounds with Batman vs. Superman. I'm going to begin with a plot, and then we're going to pass the reviewing baton, to Mr. Warburg. So this movie takes place 18 months after the destructive battle with General Zod in Metropolis and the climax of the events of Man of Steel. Superman has become a controversial figure. Daily Planet journalist Clark Kent, Superman's alter ego, has moved in with Lois Lane. Billionaire Bruce Wayne, who has operated in Gotham City as Batman for nearly 2 decades, sees Superman as a potential threat to humanity. After learning of Batman's activities, Superman also views him as a threat and seeks to stop him via the Daily Planet articles under his guise. So that is the plot. Go ahead and take it away, Mr. Warburg.
All right. Well, okay, the plot, the whole thing, I was going to make a joke about the plot, how did you even make sense of the plot? But that's a whole nother topic.
I mean, that's way
that I'll
too
get
easy
into.
anyway.
Yeah, it was just kind of a lazy joke. But I'll set it up further. The movie itself, I'm of two minds on it. Part of me is a huge DC Comics nerd. I've grown up living and breathing DC Comics, either through the cartoons or the comics, and said movies, the Batman movies. Grew up watching the old school Superman with my dad, Christopher Reeve. So I'm pretty well versed in the DC comic book stuff. With that frame of mind, I liked the shit out of this movie because there were some really fucking cool parts that I don't think enough people that know comic books are shouting as holy shit, I think this is where they're going because it's really fucking cool. But mostly that's because it was written like a piece of shit, which is the same problem I had with Man of Steel because they're written by the same guy, and that's David Goyer.
Weren't there two writers, though?
Yeah, but David Goyer, a lot of his movies have this exact same problem where he just can't wrap up his plot in 2 hours. He can't do it.
Okay, I was wondering which one was responsible for the shittiness and which one was responsible for the awesome stuff.
Plus, I'll get into some other reasons why I think it's shitty too, but and that's not on anyone that was even associated with the movies, more the executives, but David Goyer had the same problem in Man of Steel. It's just his plot points don't wrap themselves up. He's a TV writer. I really like his TV shows. I think he's one of the main writers on Person of Interest, or was, at least, in the first couple seasons, when he's a longer form storyteller. Whereas in a movie, you need to do it quicker and everything needs to wrap up or lead into a said sequel, which this one, there were just way too many plot threads, and one in particular really, really stuck out to me. And I don't want to rag on the movie too much because, like I said, I did like it, but one that really glared me and took me right out of the movie was General Swanwick, who I'm blanking on the actor's name, but he was in Man of Steel. He was the general or commander or whatever of the military forces in Man of Steel. Now he's working for the CIA. And at the end of the Man of Steel, he's like, yeah, I'm on Superman's side, going to try to, work with the government with him and everything. And in this movie, he's like, I just, I know Superman's being framed, but fuck it, I want to keep my job. And that was the case of the plot driving a character decision, not a character progressing the plot by their own decisions. Kind of the wrong way to frame how a character should act in that world, especially given that it's the world Superman inhabits. And they don't get that Superman should be an inspiring figure. Their writing looks like Superman is an X-Man, which is when everybody basically hates them and they're the minority. Superman is a character that's supposed to be inspiring, and in 2 movies we still haven't gotten that, which really frustrates me as a DC fan. And it looks like they're setting up to be Batman be the leader of everything, which I really don't like, because in the best incarnations of the Justice League or Batman and Superman, he's not that guy. He understands that Superman is that guy. He's supposed to be the leader. He's the one that is who people respect because he inspires them by his own actions. And we still haven't gotten that in 2 movies. So I'm not sure exactly where they're going to go. But all in all, there's a few other things, I really liked Alfred. Alfred was awesome in this movie. I think he was a lot better than Michael Caine's version of the character, who was more of your typical butler. He was just a butler.
Definitely.
Whereas this Alfred was, I'm working on the Batsuit. I'm going to help him fix the Batmobile and, control the Batwing when he's, driving and flying out there and doing stuff, Very clear he's been heavily involved in his career in the Batcave, not just in Wayne Manor. Whereas like in Nolan's movies, he really wasn't. He just kind of preached from the side. Whereas this one, he's clearly been in the shit with him. And Batman's universe, his world, was incredibly well realized. Some hints as to Joker, the fate of Robin, which Robin in particular. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Jason Todd.
Yeah.
And I really, really want to see I hope he's not. I hope Jason Todd is not Joker in this franchise, because I want to see Under the Red Hood directed by Ben Affleck with Ben Affleck as Batman. That movie would be fucking amazing. Like it would be awesome. I think it'd be the best Batman film anyone's ever going to make, because it would just be awesome. And like they really got his fighting style. Wonder Woman was really cool, the little bit we saw of her at least. And I'm intrigued where they're going to go with her movie, given that it'll be a totally different character, like she's never been in Mansville before in 1918. That'll be a fun movie, I think, because I like that time period from a historical perspective. Yeah, I think that one's set in like 1918, something like that. Lex Luthor, I don't know. It depends on where they go down the road. Because this leads me to my last point, which is it is a comic book movie, and comic books don't all pay off in the first issue. There are going to be layers to how it is written. Like maybe they explain that, the reason Lex is so manic is he's been contacted by fucking aliens, and he knows who Batman and Superman are, and Darkseid's out there, and even Batman clearly knows that Darkseid's coming even after Superman. We're going full spoilers, right?
Yes.
This is the spoiler alert moment where we will be like, okay, spoiler alert. Full spoilers will be disclosed. If you have not seen the movie, go see the movie before you continue. Okay,
no, don't. Don't give this movie any more money.
All right, even after Superman bites it, Batman still knows that something's coming. He clearly knows about Darkseid and the Omega symbol and the Hellspores, which he wouldn't get if he just thought that Superman was the bad guy. So Batman knows Darkseid's involved in this whole shebang. And so I'm wondering in the next movie, or Justice League movie, or maybe the Superman movie, is if they do like Death and Return of Superman or something, which would actually be really cool, barring the War of the Superman stuff, which is just kind of weird. But the setup... There are some really interesting pieces for a cinematic universe foundation, particularly like the Flashpoint stuff that clearly kind of was hinted at in the New Gods storyline, which is really, really cool. And I think one of the most, probably one of the coolest stories to come out of Jack Kirby's like entire career. And he has like a titan of the industry. So if they're going that route, I think this universe has a ton of potential. This movie didn't show it for maybe a number of reasons. Clearly not the best well-written, and maybe because WB stepped in and said, no, it's not going to be two movies, and you have to do it in like this frame, and you have to show that Superman isn't dead at the end, and it felt like the executives were stepping on toes, essentially, to make it more palatable to an audience, not trusting that the audience would get the weirder comic book stuff in the DC universe as compared to the Marvel movies, which are much more, we're going to hold your hand through it. And I don't think the executives trusted that enough, because this was not Spider-Man 3, which I left. I walked out and left, and as a huge comic book fan, that's the only comic book movie I've walked up and left. It wasn't X3 either. I don't think it was that bad, but it was a movie that was, the worst part for me is that I could see the potential and then it just not be realized on screen. So I would say if you're into DC comic books, it is worth watching, because I said those pieces of the foundation of where they're going to go with the universe, that's going to get you going, but the rest of the movie wasn't.
In general, you would recommend this to a friend if they're a DC
I would
fan
recommend
of their
watching it, because the reviews have been all over the map on this, and I'm always of the mind you should make up your own mind, and don't just trust what somebody says, and go see it and experience it. And if you want to walk out, go nuts. I mean, if we call them art, if we call movies art, they're supposed to be subjective. People are going to take different things away from them. But it's definitely, I think, worth the watch. I think the acting was good. The directing for what he had to work with the script was good, but the writing was just bad. So maybe that's fixable too. Like that's something that, you can't really fix casting when you're on a $200 million movie that's going to have multiple sequels. You're kind of stuck with your cast, more or less. Those parts were good. I just don't think Snyder is the guy that's going to lead a Justice League led by Superman, or a movie or a universe that even just has Superman in it, because he doesn't get the character and hasn't shown that in 2 movies. But those are my final thoughts. That's my blanket review, quote unquote, for Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Oh. All right, Dark, take it away with the next review.
My review of Batman v Superman is a steaming pile of shit. The end. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so...
Oh, Jesus, please stop.
So, the first... Okay, the thing... Let me just say a few things that I did really like about this movie. There were a few things. So, one thing I really liked the score to this music. The musical score. Hans Zimmer, I believe, is the one who did it. Like, the whole time, no matter how bored I was, I'm like, oh, at least this music is good. I really enjoyed that all the way through. Great job building an atmosphere. Second thing I really liked was the cinematography. This movie felt very artsy, more like what you would see in something that's trying to be Oscar bait, rather than something that's trying to be a summer blockbuster. And I did appreciate that they were trying to do something a little bit different there, but it wound up just kind of falling through with everything else that happened to be this movie. Other thing I liked, I think that Ben Affleck did a fantastic job as Batman. I was not expecting it, especially seeing what happened with him as Daredevil, but I really liked this version of Batman. It may be my favorite version of film Batman that I've seen so far. Other thing I liked, I think that Lois Lane, whatever her actress's name is, she was trying really hard to work with what she was given, even though her character was written so stupidly. And Wonder Woman. Holy shit. Wonder Woman, like, for the brief few moments she's in this movie, she totally stole it for me. I'm like, I want to know more about you, Wonder Woman. Tell me your story. I want your story. You seem very interesting. So, if they do get the budget for a Wonder Woman movie after this, I'm like, I'm totally for it. I want to see that movie. Everything else about it, though, oh god, where do I start? So the movie starts off with showing the Reapers from Mass Effect blowing up, is it Metropolis? And, like, they're super heavy on the 9/11 imagery. They're showing, like, the clouds of smoke rolling in between buildings and everything. I'm like, oh, I remember seeing this, yeah. And so, like, the whole thing with the reason why Batman is upset at Superman is, like, he looks up and sees somehow, like, the camera zooms way in on this debris flying through, and he looks up and sees, oh, there's Superman up there in that flying debris. This is his fault. And you see, like, he's like calling his, it says his father, so I'm assuming it's his adopted father, because it also shows his actual father and mother getting killed. Like, there were so many dream sequences, like, spliced into this movie. It was really hard for me to keep track of what was a dream, what wasn't a dream, what was supposed to be prophetic, and what wasn't. Like, all sorts of, like, meta bullshit that made no sense to me. So he, like, calls what he says his father, and, like, you need to evacuate the building. So everyone evacuates the building except his fucking father, who's just, like, standing there in an empty building as it collapses. I'm like, okay, one, we've already got a really stupid character here, and if this is gonna set the pace, like, I'm already disappointed. And lo and behold, like, later I wound up being really disappointed in, like, I thought Superman was stupid, Batman was stupid, like, as characters, in this particular movie, not in general. Like, I loved Batman and Superman growing up, but what they did to these characters in this film I thought was really annoying. So just starting off, I'm already upset with it. I'm like, oh, this is why Batman is got a stick up his ass for Superman now, because he looked up with binocular vision, saw Superman flying through the sky fighting the Reapers from Mass Effect, and the building collapsed with his finger quotes father on the inside, when his finger quotes father could have easily evacuated the building with every other logical thinking person. So I'm already angry just thinking about it. Then we go to the next really weird thing where Lois Lane, she is somewhere in Africa having an exclusive interview with some sort of, like, terrorist group. And I'm thinking to myself, like, when did reporters just, like, say, hey, Saddam Hussein, I'd like to have an exclusive interview with you. Invite me in. Let's just talk about things. Like, who does that? I mean, reporters get kidnapped by terrorists and killed by terrorists, but, like, this whole one-on-one interview thing, and there's this really convoluted thing with Mr. Lex. How he's like pulling the strings of everything. So shit goes down, people get killed there, and the next thing you know, you have this little African woman spouting like, Superman is responsible for the death of the people in this village. And it's like, wait a minute, what bullshit just happened here? Seriously, it's so convoluted. It was really, I was desperately trying to pay attention, figuring out who was on what side, who had done what, and it really wasn't spelling it out. I was still sitting there pondering what the fuck was Lois Lane doing, having an interview with a terrorist, and how Superman just like, obviously she told him, hey, I'm gonna go interview this terrorist, and Superman's like, good idea, honey, you go interview that terrorist, I'll be right there if something goes wrong. Like, what the fuck universe are we living in? Next thing. Let me just skip forward. So Batman's character, Batman kills all sorts of people in this movie, like guns blazing. He don't give a shit. He's just like out killing. So the whole Batman v Superman thing, where Batman is feeling butthurt that Superman may have been involved with the deaths of someone, maybe not directly responsible, but his actions have resulted in the death of other people. Like, Batman, you go out, you're out killing people. I'm seeing you in this film. Like, I lost track of how many people he killed. Like, I literally stopped caring because he was just, like, killing so many people in this movie. I'm like, who the fuck are you to judge Superman? Like, dude, you're a murderer. And from that point on, I'm just like, okay, now this movie's just trying way too hard to try to be I'm using finger quotes again, a cool movie. It's like, it wants to be one of the cool kids. And in my tweet, I said it was like on par with like Transformers sequel bad, and I kept on getting that feeling from it. Like, all the plot pieces, they just led up to these really big fight sequences that just seemed like overblown, bloated, stuff blowing up, slow motion punches and all that. It felt very like 1980s Rambo type thing, where I was just waiting to see like some Transformers balls waving in my face. And then other shit that just didn't make any sense in this movie. So, I don't know how you guys are generally kind of sciencey. So there's this whole thing where after, so Batman, let me back up again. Batman, Superman, they're being manipulated by Lex because he's masterminding the whole thing, and so Batman, in addition to like seeing his finger quotes father die in that building, he saves this other guy, Mr. No Legs. And Mr. No Legs is supposed to be receiving checks from him. Instead of him receiving these checks, he's like getting them back, and they've got these messages written on them in like red crayon or lipstick or something. Like, one of them's like, you killed your father. So Batman's like, oh my god, this is awful. This is all Superman's fault. And so Batman's pissy about that, and Superman has his mother held hostage. And Mr. Lex is like, look, you're going to go and you're going to kill the Batman, otherwise I'm going to kill your mom. I'm like, okay, that part's pretty straightforward. I mean, still, you're kind of using the mother as a MacGuffin, and I don't really like that, because, I mean, if she's an outstanding person and, like, raised Superman, who's, like, the pinnacle of morality, she would not be okay with that. She'd be like, she should have, he should be hearing her voice in his head saying, son, my life is not worth the life of an innocent, even though Batman's not innocent, like, don't do this, son. Like, but there was never any sort of internal struggle of whether or not what he should do. He's like, okay, I'm gonna try and talk to Batman, and that leads to a brawl where this whole big bloated sequence of them fighting each other could have easily been avoided and be like, hey, Batman, my mother's being held by Lex. He wanted me to come kill you. I don't want to kill you. And this is what I think is going on. And Batman, who is supposed to be a mastermind, crime solver, what do you call it? A detective. He's known for being like the world's best detective. He doesn't know that he's being manipulated. He doesn't get it. He's just kind of going along with it. And it's not until they both realize they have their mothers share the same name, that Batman's like, oh, I'm sorry, Superman. Let's be friends. In fact, you're my best friend. I'm not going to let anything happen to your mother because she shares the same name as my mother. Like, what the fuck sort of storytelling is this? Oh. And, so then, like, this other, like, end-of-the-world guy shows up, and Superman rips him up into space, and the government's like, oh, they're in space, let's nuke them! No one will get hurt that way! I'm like, guys, anyone that knows anything about science, the way nuclear explosions work, knows that there's a massive electromagnetic pulse that happens from this. All the satellites in space, in orbit, would be wiped out, and the modern world, as we know it, would cease to exist. And they're just like, it's okay. And they continue to be able to monitor everything with the satellites and everything after the whole nuclear thing fails, as we all know it is, because it hasn't been the final stupid-ass, shoehorned-in fight of the movie. And I'm like, okay, at this point in time, the modern world is over, but obviously this movie doesn't care about logic at all, because they've done, blown up a nuclear weapon in the upper atmosphere, and it has had zero effect whatsoever. So there's that. And then, what about Lois Lane? Lois Lane, God bless her actor. She was trying so hard. But they have her have this MacGuffin spear that is made with kryptonite to kill Superman. And instead of being a bright reporter who, does things that are smart, she does things that are stupid, like have an interview with a terrorist. And she's like, this thing that's going to kill my boyfriend, I'm going to throw it in this weird flooded basement. And lo and behold, as we all know that goes in these types of movies, hey, we need the MacGuffin to beat the really, really bad guy that just got blown up from space and it didn't kill him. So she, again, has to be rescued because she dives down in this water and she can't do it because the whole world's collapsing around her and Superman has to save her again. Like, oh my God, Lois Lane, please. I know you're trying so hard, but whoever wrote this is an idiot. So Superman, of course, weakened by the fucking thing. He's like, oh, get it, honey. I'm worth it. And she's like, no, please, no. I please don't. I love you. And he's like, I have to do the right thing. Now he's like, I have to do the greater good. Anywho, I'm just I've devolved into just mindless ranting now.
Bantering.
Yeah.
Yes.
This movie made me so angry. So very angry. I got to drink a beer during this movie, and I milked it. I nursed it. After an hour, I was out of beer, and I'm like, oh God, I have nothing positive to reinforce my sitting in this chair. And it was like that to the very end. To the very end.
So would you recommend this to a friend?
I desperately plead that nobody give this movie any more money because I don't want to see more shit like this made. It feels like a desperate attempt for DC and Warner Brothers to try and cash in on what Marvel has been doing on their own with their own studio. Marvel has their name attached to this, but it's not Marvel Studios themselves. This is, or not, no, I'm sorry, not Marvel at all. DC has their name attached to this, and they're trying very hard. They're saying, no, we're not trying to do the whole Marvel thing, but you can look at it and be like, no, like if shot for shot, Marvel does this, DC's doing this, but it's like the, when you're in school and you have that asshole that sits behind you and they're like leaning over your shoulder trying to copy all your notes, and they just barely eke by because they've done most of the stuff right. It feels like they're doing that. Instead of forming their own brand, encouraging their own characters to grow organically, and really respecting the medium, I really felt like this was a huge disrespect to the source material, a disrespect to the characters, and a disrespect to the audience in general. Like, the moviegoers deserve better than this. The characters of Batman and Superman deserved way better than this. And I want to see DC stopped before they completely ruin these characters.
Fair enough. Before we cut into the making the rounds and discussing all the points we've made, I just want to do a brief overview of my review real quick, and then we'll have a little conversation. We might push this to 40 minutes. I don't know. We'll see. So I've been a Marvel kid most of my life, but I do dabble in DC here and there, and I'm gonna start reading more.
It's a hell of an
DC
accent,
comics.
Zach.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you kindly. No,
that was a totally different accent. Jesus.
Yeah, it is.
Pick one.
Dude, I'm all over the way. Look, I'm not an actor.
He's a foreign
I'll
exchange
tell you that
student
right now.
from every country in the world.
Exactly. So I am completely immersed in this universe. I've watched all of the animated DC stuff, and I've read a few DC comics. So being that, I'm going to go into the music real quick. Like Dark said, really atmospheric, really good. Built the movie up very well on an atmosphere level. The characters I like all of them. I like Lex because I feel like this is how a young Lex would act.
Well,
because he hasn't had those years of like temperament, and he had, and in this particular case, he seems like he's been the abuse of his father is shown through, and it's affected him in a way to how he would act. I really enjoyed how Batman was, because it's like you can see how the years have worn on him and how angry he's gotten, and just vengeful and just full of wrath and hatred towards the weakness that crime is, the weakness of humanity, or moral weakness, I guess you could say. Superman, I mean, Superman's there are, like Mr. Wartburg will eventually say in our informal making the rounds talk, is that there are good ways to write Superman, and I don't feel like whoever was in charge of writing this has done a good job for Superman. There are bits and moments where it's like, yeah, this is a good Superman, but overall, the overall writing for Superman was just not good. The story, I liked the story, but I felt like it could be an hour shorter, and some of the things or scenes or any the dream sequences they showed you could have been tacked on at the end as like a Marvel Easter egg kind of thing, like after the credits, this is what something we show you. It shouldn't, the pacing, it kind of ruined the whole pacing of the movie to begin with. I mean, there were some character building moments that I really enjoyed when it came to experiencing Lex Luthor and how he interacted with the universe. I don't terribly like Jesse Eisenberg, the actor who did Lex Luthor, but I did enjoy this performance. I thought it was something interesting. And I really loved the fighting sequences with Batman, because it just showed just how angry he was and how hurt he was on a psychological level. And I love the ending fight, or basically the last 40 minutes of the movie when it came to Batman versus Superman, and then the quote-unquote Justice League against Doomsday. But, you know, the editing and the pacing and everything else made this a longer movie than it had to be. Would I say that I enjoyed the movie? I mean, because I'm a comic book nerd and I came in with some knowledge that most moviegoers don't have, yes. But if I were just some person trying to go in and see a movie about Batman and Superman and enjoy the movie, I probably wouldn't, because there's a lot of inside references made that most moviegoers won't have privy to. So would I recommend this to a friend? If you enjoy comic books, if you enjoy the DC universe, check it out. But if you're not immersed in that universe at all, don't see it. And what were you going to say, Mr. Warburg? Because that was the end of my review. Mr. Warburg?
Sorry, I accidentally just pulled my headphones out of my ears. So what did you say?
I said you were going to say something about Lex Luthor?
Yes, I was, and mostly it was kind of off a point of that Dark brought up. You guys were talking about how like the characters weren't like kind of what you thought they might be, and I posed this question to Joey when I was filming a similar review for my own stuff, and I was like, but what if these characters aren't who we think they are? And the reason I was thinking that is essentially the universe we're looking at for their cinematic universe is a Flashpoint universe. Barry Allen has already come back in time and changed everybody's past. And that's why, like, in Flashpoint, Batman's just a murderer. Like, and it's not Bruce Wayne, it's Thomas Wayne, which would have been awesome, because then it would have been Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Batman, which I would have fucking loved, because then he'd been comedian John Winchester and Batman. Would have blown my mind. But that'd have been a little too crazy if they wanted to go that route.
Yeah, they wouldn't get as much money as they've currently gotten if it wasn't.
Yeah, it would have just been too much. I do have to give them credit for like not holding your hand like at all, because there's some really weird shit in this movie.
Oh, for sure. Like
the Lex
coming
stuff,
of Darkseid and stuff like that.
Yeah, the specific to Lex, it's not Lex Luthor, it's Lex Luthor Jr. So it's not actually the Lex Luthor. I'm hoping he can get to be more of that type of character again when he's not basically under the thrall of an alien, because clearly he's being communicated to by Darkseid. They already released a deleted scene even already to show that yes, he's being communicated with by mother boxes and by Darkseid's minions and stuff. So again, coupled with his like dad's abuse that he mentioned and his dad's abominations, which means maybe his dad was even working for Darkseid. So that's maybe why he's so crazy.
Right,
But
yeah.
I wish they wouldn't have just made him Lex Luthor. Just make him a different character. If you're going to use that name, you need to either make him Superboy if you're going to use Lex Luthor Jr., or you need to make him, Alexander Luthor Superboy Prime, or Superboy just regular, or make him Gloria's like Godric Godfrey, who is a human working for Darkseid to basically soften Earth for him to take over the world. Just make him that character. Don't use the name just to use the name.
Okay, so I'd like to interject something here real quick. So, during your review, Mr. Wartburg, and now, anyone who knows the comics will know what you're talking about, but anybody who is not already familiar with the content of the comics is not going to know anything at all what the hell you're talking about. And this is the same point that I've brought up with a lot of movies that are based on books, where people that are like, well, if you've read the book, you know what's going on. And you're like, no, okay, so this is a completely different medium. And this is where, again, I want to draw the comparison between Marvel and DC, where Marvel makes sure that they know that they have an incredibly convoluted backstory that they're pulling their stuff from, but they make sure that every single film is cohesive, and someone who is seeing this for the first time can watch it and be like, okay, I want to know more. I'm invested. I'm ready to see where this goes. And then they include all sorts of extra stuff that only the fans are really going to pick up on. And like they'll have the end credits scene where the people who know the source material be like, oh, this is where they're going. Nice. Whereas in this movie, there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of shoehorned in. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And like the whole sequence where they're setting up the Justice League, where they pause the movie so you can watch these security tapes on a computer screen. You're like, this is what would have been at the end credit scene for a Marvel movie. But
there were a lot of those moments.
Yeah, they stuck them right in the middle, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with what's going on right now. This is them clearly saying, hey, we're going to make 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 more movies with these characters right here. Here they are, the future movies we're going to make. Stay tuned. I'm like, but I'm so... Okay, so I'm not super into the comic book origins, but I do know quite a bit. So there was even stuff in here that I was like, wait a minute, where are they going with this? Because I'm not that familiar with it, because I'm not super into the comic book origins, but I know more than the average viewer. So I could just imagine how lost some of the average viewers would be. Like, look, okay, some stuff was really cool.
Yeah, like my mom and dad. Yeah. Well, my mom and my sister basically fell asleep. Yeah. And they don't know anything about the comics or anything like that.
And to your point, I do like Marvel's structure. Like they're people that are making their decisions, not even like filmmakers, just executive producers and like content people that are forming their vision for where they want to take the thing. They have carte blanche from the from Disney to be like, hey, go do your thing. You're like, and Warner Brothers, they have people that can do it. Like Jeff Johns, he is as an executive producer, and I believe he's their creative, like chief executive officer or whatever. And he's leading a lot of this stuff. The guy knows how to tell some amazing stories, and I can see the footprints of his world and the stories he's written in the past on this movie. But like you said, that part with the Justice League setup was just kind of in the middle. That was where, to me, it felt like, oh, they just pushed 2 movies into one. Yeah. And that's what it felt like. And it's like, and I can't fault Snyder for that, because that's not a director's decision. That's an executive's decision.
That's an executive studio decision.
Yeah, and I'm not blaming Snyder specifically for any of this. I'm judging the whole thing as its own. Yeah, and the whole point, the point I was trying to make, even though I kind of started rambling, I'm sorry, I do that, is that you need to know your medium. So you're telling a story via film, and film has its own language. Film works in a different way. You have to know how to tell a story in the medium. So when you adapt something from another medium, you can't expect everybody like, oh, well, read this. Or like even Jurassic World did this to a lesser extent, where they're like, well, if you would have gone to the website, you could have gotten like a whole rundown of what, all the attractions were, what the whole park was. Because I had made the comment of, I would have liked to have like had the park explained a little bit better. And like, well, they had the website for that. I'm like, no. That's bad storytelling. You need to be able to tell your whole story in the medium that you're presenting it to, because when you fraction it off, you're going to lose people. Like it is an art form. There is a language to this art form, and this one I thought failed tragically. And I'm just using Marvel as an example because it's very, very similar. I'm not trying to say, yeah, yay Marvel, I'm Marvel all the way, and boo DC, I'm not DC all the way. They're just the easiest two to make the comparison to, because I have been a fan of Batman, Superman, and then the Marvel ones, Spider-Man, X-Men, since I was a kid. I'm not trying to be anti-DC. I'm just using them as an example because I think Marvel is doing the better job of telling the story of comic books in the film media right now.
Oh, totally. I agree with you. It's just that, again, as a guy who similarly likes it, I just really liked the foundation they laid, and that was what to me took it from just your it was an okay time at the movies to I liked it more because I had those insights. Don't have those insights, that's where I was saying I'm of two minds. Is like if you don't have that background, it's honestly I compared it to. If you weren't a TMNT fan and you went and saw TMNT 2, the new one a couple years ago, it was just that, But if you like TMNT, then you kind of had a little more stake in it. Whereas I think a similar kind of thing to this one, where it was just an alright summer movie that was a little bloated and could have been better.
Yeah,
if I have that basis of knowledge, which I have a fucking shitload of compared to
you're
like 99.9% of people on the planet, and that's not like to say like better or anything. It's just I just really know the shit. I'm a Wikipedia nerd,
and that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Comic book Wikipedia. There are a few things that are more accurate on Wikipedia than fucking comic book stuff. Because comic book nerds,
because people like you are editing those articles.
They take their sources very, very seriously. Probably the most well-sourced stuff on Wikipedia is comic books and maybe video games, but maybe that's just because we're all nerds. But with that basis of knowledge, that's what kind of elevated it a little bit to me. But from the film perspective, I wouldn't really say it's all that good, but I definitely think it's worth the watch just for they are going to clearly make sequels to this movie, so you might as well see what the setup is all about.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about right there. What I meant by when I said I think it was disrespectful, in the fact that it's doing a bit of fan service to people who are very knowledgeable about it, but at the same time, it's
doing a lot of fan service.
It's not
bringing
in new fans, or it's going to have a very hard time bringing in new fans, and something
look at already the second weekend. It only made $15 million yesterday.
It's like that's
awful.
I want to see these movies really bring in a lot of money, because these characters they're iconic for a reason. They are beloved for a reason. And when your story that you're telling with so much money attached to it, fails so horribly to to draw in new audience members, and these are characters that everyone should be able to relate to. That's why they're so iconic. That's why they're so timeless. And when you don't already know everything that happens in the universe, you're like, nah. That was an interesting summer movie. I got to see a bunch of explosions. That's why I compared it to Transformers, because it's that's all that the average movie goer is going to see. Batman fought Superman, stuff blew up. It was fun, and that was it. It could have been so much more than that.
Oh yeah, I'm with you there. And the thing that really gets me, because I'm more Superman than Batman, is they just don't get Superman, and it fucking pisses me off.
They always make him the most boring. He's boring.
He's not supposed to be
I can't even
I
see
just
character.
put a link in the chat.
He's so boring.
It's like even just like a fan who made a comic gets that Superman should just be. He's just a good guy who's trying to do the right thing. They say this in the movie. It's one guy for all of 10 seconds that said this, and then it's everyone hates him, which is not fucking Superman. That's X-Men, not Superman.
Yeah, and it's
figure your shit out.
It's absolutely staggering to me how no one in Hollywood thinks that you can make a good movie about someone who's just trying to do the right thing. There's so many times where people who are just trying to do the right thing wind up getting people angry at them, wind up sometimes making the wrong decisions because it seemed like the right idea at the time. but Hollywood
and those
fails
are some of
at
Superman's
making these
best stories.
So yeah, those are the best stories
Yeah.
with Superman.
Whatever Happened to Truth, Justice, and the American Way? Fucking great comic book.
Exactly, because you totally know where he's coming from, and when things go wrong, you're like, oh shit, like I was totally with him the whole time, and then unforeseen things happen, and it doesn't turn out the way you think it was going to happen, because that's the way he thought it was going to happen. You're like, yes, oh, I'm so invested right now, and now I'm devastated because like I was so invested, and they just can't do that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
anyway.
it suffers, like, the movie's trying so hard to be a comic book, because it's like the first issue of a series. Like, it's setting up all these great things, there's a lot of allusions to all these other great story plots that'll happen in the future, but for a moviegoer, like we've been saying, it's difficult to get all that accomplished and it not be a bad movie, because it's all about pacing and how they pace this movie. Even with the 2 hours and 40 minutes, it was.
Yeah.
It just.
I
Wasn't
wish
right.
if that report of it being 2 movies was right, I can't believe WB made the decision to put it into one, because I can see where they like
movies.
Superman Doomsday. That's something big enough. It should have been its own damn movie. And it should have been its own Superman sequel, Superman's focus thing. Batman versus Superman, basically make it Dark Knight Returns, but make it not 20 years after they've all retired, make it before they've started. And they used a ton of those. And Dark, you had an awesome point about the EMP thing, right? In the nuke thing. That's a massive plot point in Dark Knight Returns, and they just left it out.
Yeah,
they took
like,
the scene of them
care.
getting nuked. They took the scene of it, and the whole shot of him like basically being dead in space, left out the EMP part. Like,
yep.
You had to have read this. Like, clearly you have read this. The fuck? Pissed me right off.
So, Zach, we are at the 40-minute mark.
40-minute mark.
Yep. I'd like to make a suggestion real quick to wrap this up.
Sure, go for
it. Let's all say what our favorite scene in the movie was. What was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene was when Batman was beating the snot out of Superman, because it's just, I don't know, I felt like the motivation was kind of just for him. All the things he experienced, his surrogate father being killed, all of his employees, basically his family dying because of the misactions of a super being, and him getting that revenge and wrath is just, it was so good. And I also really enjoyed the Doomsday fight because they incorporated Wonder Woman more. So those 2 scenes are probably my favorite.
All right, how about you, Mr. Warburg?
Well, I would say you actually may have missed the motivation for why Batman wanted Superman dead, but that's because of the sequence that, like the dream sequence with like the Nightmare Batman when he's in the desert and the Omega symbol, and you see the Hellspores, you see the Omega symbol, you see Superman and the Parademons and all this other kind of stuff. Basically, it implies that Batman knows about Darkseid. He knows about his technology and all that kind of stuff. So and that would set up to the point where apparently in this weird future, which I think was actually a timeline that they're gonna like look at more, Superman became a thrall of Darkseid, which is one of the best parts of Superman the animated series, because Lois Lane died like she did in Injustice, and then he went kind of crazy. Because as soon as he wakes up, he sees the Flash, and he doesn't look shocked. He looks shocked when it's Wonder Woman and he sees the photo. He looks surprised. He's not surprised when he sees Flash talking to him and like trying to speak to him through the Speed Force. That was the part that just got me going, oh shit, they are going like super fucking comic book with this, and
They're going
I fucking
deep.
love it. Like that scene, that got me going. That had me hooked. It's had me hooked ever since I saw it. It was fucking cool. But that's my favorite part.
All right. So my favorite part in this movie, it's actually a 2-parter. And it stems off of one of those things I was pissed off about. So that senator goes and meets Lex at his house. Who does that? Like, why not send an email? But anyway, she's there and they have this conversation and about why she's not going to weaponize the Green Rock. And she says something along the lines like, don't piss in a jar and tell me it's Granny's peach tea, because it's still piss. And I'm like, oh, that was kind of a clever line. And then, like, because we're still in spoiler territory, she's like about to interview interview Superman to get his side of the story, and she gets distracted by something, and it's this yellowish liquid in a jar, and she turns it around, and it says, Granny's peach tea. on the side of it, and then the bomb goes off. I'm like, that was really clever writing. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I really loved that. I'm like, why wasn't the rest of the movie this clever? I'm like,
Yeah.
that made me smile. I mean, I was kind of sad because I really liked that character, because she was like a no-nonsense, like, go get him, like, I've wrestled pigs, I grew up on a farm type character. I'm like, I like this woman, and then, you know, boom, she's gone. And then there was someone else in that audience that was gone too, but I just love that. I'm like, oh, I wish the rest of the film was on this caliber. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
That's awesome. And with that note, stay tuned. You can always check out the next episode of Making the Rounds on YouTube, and just keep up to date with all of our social media stuff via @theforum thread on Twitter. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, we love you long time.